Welcome to the We Are Claimin'It podcast, where real women take real steps towards healthier living, meaningful purpose, and income that truly transforms their lives and their family's future. I'm your host, Tammy Guillory. If you're done waiting for the right time, you're in the right place. Let's get started. All right, guys, welcome back to the We Are Claimin'It podcast. And I am so stinking excited for today's conversation. Today, I am joined by an incredible woman. She is an entrepreneur, a leader, a wife, a mom, and an author of the Anything is Possible book, which is incredible. I wrote this down. It's 10 Keys to Unlock the Life of Your Dreams, and it is such a good book. So definitely pick that up. She's also the host of the Anything is Possible podcast. And honestly, look, somebody I'm just really grateful to know. Sadie and I are colleagues. We met through some company events over the years. And one thing that I really appreciated about you, Sadie, and I know I've told you this already, is even though we don't directly benefit from each other's businesses, you truly live out the culture of abundance. And it really is what our company teaches. You lead, and I see you all the time pouring into others, and you share so openly. I really appreciate that. And look, this is rare. I mean, this is a rare thing that you see. Most companies, especially sales companies, you do not see people living out the same mission to enhance lives. But that's one thing that Sadie does, and it's much appreciated. Now, I started with this company back in 2016, and Sadie came in shortly after me. A matter of fact, just a year apart. She came in 2017. And it's truly been so much fun to watch her journey because she has absolutely flown to the top. But more than that, she has brought so many women with her. And that's why I asked her to be on my podcast today, because I'm just inspired by her. I'm honored to have you here today. But I do believe that our audience needs to hear your story because I think they're going to be inspired. So thank you for being with me, first of all, Sadie.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I know that you are busy, so I do appreciate the time that you took out to do this today. So I want to get started with this. I think too often people see our success, right? If they follow you on social media, they're like, oh my gosh, that girl's sitting by the pool. She's always so cute. She just remodeled her closet, like all the things, right? And she's so successful. But nobody knows the backstory and they don't understand what it took for us to get where we are. And so I want you to just kind of take us back. What was life like growing up for you?
Thank you for asking. And I think it's important that we do share that. And I do love my closet, by the way. Like, love it.
It's
It's not my
amazing.
dream closet, but we made it work for what we had, so it's fine. But so do you want me to just do my little elevator spiel? Would that be okay? I'll do it as quickly as I can.
You can do whatever
Okay.
you want to.
Okay. So I also think that this sets the tone too, because just like you said, people think they see where you're at today. They have no idea what it took to get there. So I was raised in a little bitty small town, and I hope that this resonates with a lot of you that think that you have to be from a big community to be successful. But I came from a little small town. We had one four-way stop. I was raised by my dad. I have an identical twin sister and two older siblings, an older brother and sister. My mom left when I was 7 years old. So I don't have a lot of memory of my parents together. I have some, but not a lot. But the memories I do have, there was a lot of fighting. Um, and I just remember my mom leaving, and my dad was absolutely devastated, just heartbroken, but she didn't want us. So he was going to give custody to her, but she didn't want any of us. So he took custody of all of us, but his kidneys were failing at the same time. So we have a kidney disease called Alport syndrome. So he was in his 30s and he was going through renal failure. And she also had left him in debt. So not only did he have 4 kids, debt, and renal failure, so he wasn't going to be able to work either. So we had to go on public aid and food stamps, things like that, till SSI would kick in. And we were little. So his kidneys quit when I was 8. And my dad was broken and bitter. Like, he was cranky. He wasn't like what you look at, like, oh, he beat us or he was very abusive, but he was verbally. And I want to make it very clear that I love him. He's the best human on the planet. Well, he's deceased now, but he was the best human on the planet. And I wouldn't be the person that I'm at today without him. But he I grew up not believing in myself and thinking that I was worthless and thinking that I had all these labels that he would put on us just because he was in a mood or whatever that looked like. And it was, where the parents were arguing. Well, he ended up getting a kidney transplant in 1989. My mom never came around, so we didn't see her. She didn't call us on birthdays. Like, we didn't really have her in our lives. So I remember when he went to go get the kidney transplant, us 4 kids were left by ourselves, and I was 9 at the time. And he was gone the whole summer because he had to go stay in a very, like, sanitary environment after the transplant, which was with my grandmother in town. And remember, you're talking 1989. So you didn't have cell phones. You didn't have, the communication wasn't like it is today. So it was, you're not there, out of sight, out of mind. Our grass was tall. We didn't have, I don't even remember when groceries came to the house. I don't know how often I bathed. I remember sneaking over to my friend's neighbor's house and eating instant mashed potatoes and mac and cheese and sucking on beef bouillon cubes. Like, it was just, but you don't, people like, they feel sorry for me. And I'm like, they're like, weren't you sad? Didn't you feel sorry for yourself? And I was like, you don't know what you don't know. You live that life
Right.
and you're kind of in survival mode. So I didn't know any other way of life. You know what I mean? So it wasn't, I was just getting through the
You were
days.
9.
Mhm.
You were
Yeah.
still a baby.
Well, and by the time we would go to town and see my dad, and finally we told him, nobody's been there. And I guess my mom was supposed to be, but she wasn't. So then he came there and he took us to our aunts, and me and my twin sister's scalps were green. So I don't even know, like, how often we bathed. I'm not even sure because I don't really, I don't know. But he ended up getting CMV virus, and I don't know if it was from the cats that were in the house, but it ended up knocking out his kidney. So his kidney ended up failing. That new kidney ended up failing, and as a young teenager in my preteen years, I turned to drugs and alcohol to just kind of escape my reality, escape what my life was. And I got pretty heavy into it. My twin sister got pregnant at 15. And I remember I moved out at 16 and I moved in with a drug dealer. So I had lived there for quite a while. And I remember the moment, and I was doing very hard drugs. It's kind of embarrassing to even say it. Is it okay if I share?
Yeah, no, it is. It is
Okay.
because I think that, I think that we should be real. I mean, we all have our past, right? And I think that it's important because you're going to speak to the person that's supposed to hear this.
So, well, I dropped out of high school at 16 and I started with alcohol and then smoking pot. And then I ended up doing crystal meth and then cocaine. And I remember I had been up for like 3 days. And I don't know if I was going through overdose or withdrawal, but I remember my whole body just like went paralyzed. And he was driving and I said, "Hey, there's an ambulance, take me to the ambulance." Like, I'm not right. Like, everything, like, my body's paralyzed. And he's like, "No, you're going to go back to the apartment. You're going to sleep it off." So,
Wow.
and I went back and I remember waking up thinking, I am better. Literally, it's like a light bulb went off in my head. And I was like 80 pounds soaking wet. And I was like, I'm better than this. Like, I don't want to live like this. I'm better than this. I grabbed all the stuff that was at that house and I went back to my dad's house. I was 17 at the time and I ended up going to get a job. And I ended up working full time, got a GED when I was 19 years old. And then I was working at Walmart and I met my husband, and we got married when I was 20 years old, and we what you would have thought was like the perfect little life. I started a network and talked to people that made me realize that I don't have to live like I grew up, because when you're in that bubble, you think that's the only way to live. And I mean, there's times my dad threatened to hit my hand with a hammer. I slept outside. Like, I mean, the list goes on and on. And I just remember my husband's mom, she talks so highly of her kids and she just spilled belief into them. And I was like, wait a minute, you mean not everybody acts like, you know, I grew up? You mean I can really live a good life? Like, I don't need to get lucky? Because my dad literally said, like, you're either lucky or you're going to marry rich. And we're not lucky and we don't have any rich family members. So you can go be a receptionist, get married, have kids. Like, that's going to be your life. The mediocre, whatever, just paying bills to live, you know? And so that was my expectations until, and I literally was working that way until I started realizing how much I hated corporate. So I got a job at a cancer center when I was 24. I didn't have Savannah till I was 26. I was married 6 years, thought I did it all right. Everybody thought we had the perfect marriage. We were making 80,000 together, so, we were making $80,000 together as a married
Hey, that
couple.
was a lot at that time. I mean,
My
my
dad
first
thought we
house I
were
paid
rich.
89,000 for. I was just
Oh,
talking about that to my husband today.
uh,
But you and I have you okay, I had a good I can't say I had a bad childhood. I mean, my mom and dad were together. I mean, there was a lot of fighting in our house. There probably wasn't a whole lot of I mean, they loved each other, but they didn't love each other, you know what I mean? But absolutely I didn't make the right choices as a young adult either because I think I was missing something, right? I was missing something. And I too, I got pregnant at right out of high school, had a baby at 18. got married. I mean, trust me, I can relate to that because, you know, you get married and you're like, everything's great. And then I was like you, I was like working corporate, but yeah. So, would you say it was at 17 that you had that light switch go off? I know you mentioned that you moved back home and made some changes, got your GED. It was
I
that
would
one
say
night that
I would say 17 is when I decided that I wasn't going to do drugs anymore, and it literally was a light switch. Like, I didn't have to go to rehab. I didn't have to do like, I just realized, but I was still smoking pot. I smoked pot till I was about 19 years old. Um, but I realized that I was better. You know, not like I had a big attitude, but I was just better than that. And I was working a mediocre job. Like, I worked at a grocery store, and then I met Savannah's dad at Walmart. I was working at Walmart. And when we got married, he was in the army, and we were just trying to we were your everyday 20, 21-year-old person working a job that barely paid the bills and just really just loving each other and enjoying life. But once I had Savannah, he went to total crap and he had a lot of affairs and he left me in $40,000 in credit card debt, and my house got foreclosed on in '08. So, because I couldn't pay the mortgage by myself and he left. So I had the house and, it was a housing market crash. We owed more than it was worth. So I lost my house. My dad passed away that December. I was 28 and then my car got repossessed out of my driveway in '09. And I was in a little bitty house. Thankful to my dad because he helped me get into that little bitty house because I already had that mortgage and the foreclosure. And I remember thinking like I can't even pay my bills. Like, I couldn't pay my bills. The house was like $50,000, had asbestos flooring. We didn't even have lights in the ceiling. I had to have somebody come in and put like lights in the ceiling. But it just honestly, I got to the point at that time. I was like, you know what? I just want to be a mom. I want to be happy. I'm going to work on my fitness and my job. And even though I was only making like $37,000 a year, I could at least pay my bills and live. And I met Brent a few years later. So, and that's when my life really changed because I'm really stubborn. And even though like I didn't have a lot of money and I didn't have really anything, but I could be a really good mom. And I was always, listen, I'm like a dog with a bone, good or bad, I'm all in. Like, if I make a decision, I'm going to do it. So when it comes to my fitness, I was doing the mud runs and the marathons and the bodybuilding and doing all the things. But I remember the moment I was in corporate, I was like, is this really it? Like, am I really going to live my entire life, Monday through Friday, working 9 to 5, walking into these same doors with 10 days of vacation a year? I was like, this isn't living. This is, this is awful. Like, this is awful. Like, I can't even be a mom. Like, I just want to be a mom. I want to, God forbid, my daughter's sick. I remember her saying, the boss I had asked me when my dad had a stroke, I don't mean to be insensitive, but how long does that normally take? Like, for him to die. Right. And then my daughter, is there anybody else? No. No, there's not. Just
right.
like those types of things, and I'm just like, this is not living. So, when Brent and I ended up getting married years and years and years later, that's when I was introduced to a multi-level marketing company, and I did not even know what that was. And she was on me for months. And then when I ended up enrolling, I was like, I worked my butt off. Like, I was coachable. I was willing to do whatever it took, but I worked a whole 14 months, never making. I think I had one check that was $700. The rest were all under 500. And I'm a hustler. And I
Yeah.
lived with my phone, made sacrifices, and eventually I was earning between 1,500 and 3,000 a month, and I quit my full-time job, and that business did not stay. So thank God I had Brent where he's like, you know what, we'll make things work, whatever. And after that, I went from one company to another in like a 6-month period. And I was like, you know what? I'm not cut out for this. I'm just going to be a poor, happy military wife. Like, that's it. I'll sell
And
some.
God had other plans for you, girl.
He
But
did.
I
He
have
did.
I have a question because I think that somebody might be listening to this and maybe they do feel stuck. I mean, I know you had to feel stuck when you were going through all the challenges. So what would you say to the woman who feels stuck because of her environment? Because I used to be there.
Well, that's a good question, and I would tell you that it's kind of wild because I feel like you grow through what you go through. So a lot of times, like, I never sat in it long. I may have had a moment to where I'd sit and cry. There's lots of moments that I would sit and cry. I do feel like my upbringing and my trauma has put a pretty tough exterior wall up. Doesn't mean I'm not emotional. I'm actually more emotional and for other people's pain than my own. Like I'm very intuitive and I feel people's pain and stuff like that, but I'm real quick to tell myself to get it together, but I will tell you that self-development really, really helps. Your mindset, like you personally will never grow past where your mind is. So if you whatever you feed your mind is your reality. So if you don't talk yourself through these situations and surround yourself with people that are going to help pull you out of this, like if you're with 5 hobos, you're gonna be the 6th. So you
Yes.
have to make sure that you're really talking to people that are at a different level, and listen, I think one of your questions, I'm probably gonna address that too. I have absolutely changed my surroundings and the people that I talk to. I mean, there were times, and I'm talking through growth processes, like, I'm talking from the divorce, losing my dad, I started to drink again, just little things on the weekends when if Savannah wasn't with me, I'd go out and I'd drink, but that was short-lived. That was like a 9-month sprint, and then I got out of it and I got myself back into where I needed to be. But I gradually changed my circle. So I wasn't with a great circle then, but I had met a couple people mixed in there because I wasn't totally in it. You know what I mean? But so then as I started to talk myself up and get more into health and wellness and started going to the gym, I started meeting people at the gym. And then I didn't like, oh, I don't like you anymore. It was a gradual thing to where they didn't serve me in the area. They weren't serving my future goals. So the people that I was around, they weren't providing value in my life. They didn't make me better. They were going to keep me down or they were negative. And I was at a different spot in my life to where I was working and changing who I was. But it was a gradual thing. So a lot of times I feel like if you feel stuck and you're in a moment, you're going to have to take some actions to get yourself unstuck. And one is the circle of people you're around. If you continue to be around that same circle, you are going to never change. Go to, listen, there's a lot of things you can do. Go to church. I don't care if you're real religious or if you're just looking for growth. Church is a very safe place. And normally people are all working through their own demons. You know what I mean? All on different levels. The gym, man, there's nothing more of a natural high than working out or making yourself feel better and getting you in a better headspace. Grabbing a really good book or a podcast. There is all different things, but you have to be willing to take the step. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with talking to a counselor, somebody that you can talk things through with. And I'm not real good about that. I myself probably need to take a lesson out of my own book. But my daughter goes and talks to people, and she's 20 years old, and she does it just if she's feeling a certain way or if she's feeling like her emotions are kind of out of whack. She's like, I'm gonna go talk it through because I'm not feeling right. I feel like sometimes this generation's way better about their feelings than we were,
Yeah.
but those are just some things that I've done for myself. Tony Robbins, I remember grabbing a Tony Robbins book and reading that, or Jen
Oh my
Sincero,
gosh,
like
I
You
have
Are a
so many
Badass.
books. Yeah,
Mhm,
and look, I think that sometimes it just takes one person believing in you.
mhm.
Think
One,
back.
one.
Yeah, I think back on that, and you talked about the gym. Well, I was in an abusive relationship, coming out of an abusive relationship, and I went to the gym. And I started working out in my 20s, and I met one person. Her name was Miss Wanda, and her husband is Louie. And she invited me to a race. And I did a 5K with her, and I was the last person to finish. And I was like, "Ooh, this woman's fast." And she's like probably, I don't know. I mean, if Wanda ever listens to this, she's probably 70 something,
That is
72, 73,
incredible.
74. So, I mean, she was much older than I was. I'm like, I'm going to hang back here with you in the back. And she was like, shoo, she was off. And I'm like, "Ooh, Tammy, you need to get with it." But it was her that believed in me and was like, "Hey, come with me to a race." Then it was, I had a trainer, and then it was so, fitness wise. And then I had someone that I worked with that would tell me how pretty I was when I didn't believe I was pretty. And then working for corporate sales, I had, my boss was a great mentor and told me, "Girl, you could do this. You could be a circle of excellence manager. Like, you're going to do this," which is like President's Club where we're at, but it was circle of excellence over there. And then, it's just taken that. And sometimes you and I as leaders have to believe in someone that doesn't believe in themselves yet
Always.
either.
Mhm.
So I'm sure you had lots of people like that in your life as well that believed in you,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would say the first one was my mother-in-law at the time. Like, that was the first person that she just treated me like a normal human and not like I was less than and I wasn't good enough or I wasn't gonna amount to anything. Like, I feel like my childhood was always trying to prove myself because I didn't feel
Yeah.
like I was good enough, but I don't think my dad did it intentionally. He was bitter. He was crabby. He just Like oh my gosh, like looking back, I'm sure he would feel terrible about me even saying this stuff like that he did that, but he did the best that he could at what he was given at the time. You
Yeah.
know, and even as a 46-year-old woman now, there was a moment that, people ask me if I hold a grudge against my mom. It took me years to forgive, and I would say I forgave, and I realized I hadn't. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. If there's somebody listening that if you can relate to this, because I bet you almost every single person out there can probably relate to this in some way, shape, or form. But for a mother to leave her children, it's a really hard pill to swallow, especially being a mother. But we're all doing this life together. And what I've had to learn is she was going through her life at the same time that we were going through our lives. Was she a great mother? No. But she didn't really she just lived the life that she lived at what she felt at the time. Does she have regrets? Absolutely. Would she have made changes? Probably. But she also had 4 kids at 20. She was 20 with 4 kids. And, my dad was 7. Like and I'm not going to make excuses, but it was what it was. And her perception of her life is different than my perception of my life. So I
Right.
perceive my life from where I was, and she perceives it from where she was. And I can be sad and it hurt, but I love her and she's my mom. And I've truly forgiven and I've healed. Does that make
Yes,
sense? Like I've been able to heal.
absolutely.
And until you're able to heal from that, you're going to hold on to the trauma and to the heartache and to the anger. And you know what it does? It destroys you. Truly does. And it took me a long time. I would say that I probably didn't fully forgive her until I moved here in 2021 and I did a Tony Robbins Date with Destiny. And I thought it'll make me emotional. I thought I had forgiven her, but I hadn't. And then once I went through that, I was like, no, like you really, Sadie, like you got to heal like inside. And I was able to work through my emotions. And you don't have to be best friends, but I'll still wish her a happy birthday. And I'll still, she did what she thought she could. But I'm a hell of a mom. I'll tell you what, like I became the mom that I always would have wanted.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's the
good.
coolest freaking thing on the planet.
Well, and that's good because I think people love the only way that they know how to love. And I've
Mhm.
learned that too, right? And look, I wish I would have healed a lot earlier than like I'm going to be 50 this year. It took me until I was like 48 to realize I needed to heal from some things, you know? I wish I would have done it earlier. And now the only thing I can do having 5 kids, 4 of them being daughters, is just to tell them, "Do it now, like, do it earlier than me." So, yeah, that's good stuff, and I love that you said that you absolutely have grown as a person, but also your circle has grown as you've grown as well.
And it
Uh,
should keep growing.
it should. Look, I think most of my friends are people we work with. I mean, to tell you the truth, they have they have high goals, they're goal setters, they want a lot out of life, and, like, I mean, I'll talk to people and, Sandy is one of somebody that
And you can
inspires me
change in
too.
seasons, like, there's people even where we're at to where, like, I'll spend more time with them this time, and then sometimes they're in a different season in their life. Doesn't mean I don't love them and they're not great, but then I'm ready to level, so then you go and you surround you with a different circle that are leveling up, so there's
Yes,
nothing wrong with that either, so it doesn't mean you don't love them or care about them, but it's a
absolutely.
season. Mhm.
Yep, that's good. And look, I mean, I still have friends from high school, so it's like,
Yeah.
you always have different friends in different circles. So you have built incredible success here, and just in your life, right? And I don't think that most people even realize how much money that we have the opportunity to make here. But I look at your checks and I'm like, okay, dream board check. There we go. I'm going to get
It's
one
the
of
limit.
those. What do you think made you move so quickly? Because you did. You have moved very quickly and you've helped so many others do the same. So, is there something in you? What do you have in there?
And that's a really good question too, and the best answer I have, I wish that I could understand what makes somebody grittier than somebody else. I don't have that answer. And because there's things that I think about and so the way that I operate and the way somebody else operates, and we could have the same opportunity given to us, but I react in a different way and somebody else. And I mentally cannot wrap my brain around them not willing to make sacrifices or not willing to do the like I don't know how not to always be on.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I love what I do at this time in my life. I don't know how to shut it off. So I've got some really good work ethic, but I would tell you that I'm very disciplined. So when I make a decision to do something, I create really good habits on what I know that I need to do, and I set up plans, and then I implement, I take action, and I wake up every day and I wash, rinse, repeat. I'm really, and that's why, I think sometimes people, that's why I love people in fitness and people in business. We're like the best of both worlds because we're disciplined with our fitness, but you can have people disciplined in fitness, but not in business. But I think that if you get that together, it's a really beautiful thing because if you care about your health and wellness and you're disciplined in the gym, you've learned the good habits and discipline that you can implement that into your business. So
That's good.
they make really good business partners. And I love meeting people at the gym, but you have to be willing to be uncomfortable doing things you've never done before. So a lot of things that will stop people is they're like, "Man, I'm just so nervous doing that. I'm uncomfortable." I'm like, "Well, hello. You've never done it before. You're never going to be comfortable doing something you've never done. You have to take action and do it being uncomfortable, and then you grow confidence through action, and then it becomes less uncomfortable, and then you create habits, and then it just becomes what you do every single morning. Like, I can't imagine waking up in the morning and not posting on social media. Like, oh my God, I would know that something was missing. It's just what I've done for 7 years, so I don't know how not to do that. Um, but gosh, I mean, just be willing to be coachable, learn habits, and become very disciplined. That's where you're going to have success. And there's people at different levels of success, but I would say moving fast, I don't, my first 6 months, I kind of dabbled because I really wasn't sure what we had our hands on and I didn't know, so I just kind of did it kind of in my spare time. And I was like, oh, cool. I got a decent check, whatever. And then when my friend came in or in December and her check was just like an unbelievable amount of money, I was like, get out of here. I was like, man, all I saw was if she can do this, I know I can do this. And I use that as fuel. And I still today, like I love watching people succeed
Me
and
too.
win at whatever they set their goals for. Anybody can be successful. You just have to be willing to outwork other people because naturally most people are lazy. Like people are lazy. They just are. And if you're willing to do, I would rather have somebody be consistent and disciplined than high intensity short term. Because high intensity short term, you're going to do really good for a minute and then you're not going to do anything for a long time. I'd rather see you slow and consistent and you're going to have success. So, I mean, as long as you're willing to put yourself out there and stay consistent and not stop, you will have success. And if you're in, and for anybody out there that's in a point to where they had success and now they're just in this journey, this like, this season, keep working through that season because there is always success on the other side. The reason most people don't reach it is because they stop because they're just like, oh my God, like you're not spinning your wheels. I remember conversations for years, you guys. I wasn't getting to my goal. And I was like, what in the world am I doing wrong? Do I need to go do what this person's doing? And I talked to, some corporate staff and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? They're like, nothing. They're like, some people could come in and do exactly what you've done this year and they'll go all the way to the top. But your journey is not their journey. You need to keep doing the exact same activities that you're doing and you're still going to reach that, but you've got to keep going. It took me longer, but guess what? I did.
Yeah.
And now even through some of the growing seasons, I just remember because this is going to be a lifelong journey. You're not going to have it all together every single day. And I'm not going to feel positive every single day. But I do know that if I keep pushing through those moments, I absolutely will have the success on the other side. It may not be this year. It may not be next. It could be 5 years, but it will happen.
And one thing I find too, and I've heard you say this as well, is man, mindset, right? If I think it and then I say it, I begin to believe it. And I've heard so often people say negative things out of their mind and they better catch them before they come out or out of their mouth and they better catch them before they come out of their mouth or if they come out of their mouth, they better switch it real quick and tell yourself something positive. Just like you said earlier, I mean, you know, it's not about are you better than somebody else? It's you're consistent and you're disciplined. And I think that that's super important. My granddaughter's learned how to play piano. Okay, she's a lot better at playing piano than I am because she's practicing more. But if I go sit behind the piano and play as much as she's playing, I can be good as well. I mean, it's the same thing, right? But you have to want it too. So I'm curious, do you have like when you sit down and think about your dreams, your goals, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? I bet you that you're the type of person that has a game plan together, don't you? Or at least a vision of where you want to be.
I have a vision and I have it mapped out, but life's always going to give you some obstacles.
Yes.
So, even though you have it mapped out, just be prepared that it may not be a straight arrow, but that's the point because I truly feel like God gave me not the straight arrow so I could grow into the person that I needed to be to actually achieve that because success comes with a lot of responsibility. And sometimes you might think you're ready for that, but you may not be. And He knows you're not. So you have to go through those hills and valleys in order to become that person that it's going to take to do that, to to do the responsibility of what that's going to require. So and I feel that hardcore. Like I mean, I've got big goals and I pray that I am at the level to handle that because I feel that I'm ready for it. But we'll see what He has mapped out. But yeah, I absolutely have a 5 year and a 10 year plan. I'm putting my daughter through med school. So, we don't have debt outside of our mortgages. We do have an investment property that we have too that my daughter and her friend are renting from us by the university. So it just we're not making money on it. I'll tell you that right now. We are my daughter lives there and a friend. Like I'm gonna tell you right now. Like they're spoiled.
Still, when your
Yeah.
daughter and her friend doesn't live there anymore, then
Yeah,
you will
they're
be.
they're they're rotten, but so, we did that, but I mean, I want her to have her MD with 0 debt, and I told her yesterday, we were making fun of her, told her that she's gonna eat bologna and hot dogs because I don't know what it was, but I was like, "If you don't come see me more, I'm cutting you off," and Brent's like, "You like bologna and hot dogs?" And she's like, "What?" She didn't know what bologna was, and he's like, "You're gonna find out real quick if you don't start spending more time with your mom," but it's funny, like, we made a joke about it, but, I just want her to be able to have that life, and how cool would that be? Like, who gets to go to med school with no debt? You
It's
know what I
amazing.
mean? So
It's
I'm working
amazing.
really hard for all of those things, like, how cool. I just want her to be able to start in this world with a really good education and do what she wants to do, whether that changes or not. She's just gonna be a junior, but she's actually doing, she splits, cancer cells, kidney cancer cells, and she puts them in incubators, and she's starting this summer where she'll lead it. She's been training on it, and it's a paid like internship thing at the university. So it's really cool. And she's just right place, right time, honestly. That's what she gets for showing up to
Awesome.
class 45 minutes early. That's what happened. She showed up to class 45 minutes early, like her first week, and had a conversation with the professor. And he looked her up and asked her if she wanted to do this. So
Okay, that is super cool. Look at
yeah,
her. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I'm real
And it
proud.
is.
Like, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. You should be. You should be. I'm proud of my girls too. It's like we always want more for our children than what we may have had the opportunity to do. And it's funny, like you said, you want her to be able to graduate without having debt because I know so many people that have so much in student debt and they can never. It feels like they can never get ahead. They
can't
never can pay
breathe.
it off.
All their stress, like, they should be able to go out there and be able to really focus on their career and their future, and they're stressed to the max because they've gotta make money to pay this it's just and I get it, I know that that's a normal thing, I just don't if I can prevent it, I'm going to.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, congratulations to you that you're able to do that. I know my business partner, Beth, that was one thing that she really talked to me about in the beginning too, is she was able to do that for her daughters and, even have them start with a home right out of college too. So, I
Right.
mean, very, very cool.
I mean, how
So,
that is cool. Mhm.
absolutely. And, most people are like, oh, I'm good. Financially, I'm good. And I'm like, anything can happen at any time. You just don't know what life's going to deal you. So, are you really good?
Our
Can you be
idea
without work?
changes, I think, like, who you're around, like, there is a moment I would have thought Brent and I were good. I mean, we had a little credit card debt, we had car payments, like but we were one catastrophe away from being in big trouble. Like your AC in your house goes out or your car, you need new tires on your car. We can afford them in cash. We were gonna have to put them on a credit card.
Correct.
So
Correct. And that's the thing. I think that so many people, and I hear it all the time, like, oh, we're good financially. But good financially really isn't like the way we think about being good
paycheck to paycheck,
financially is
that's how
having
we
all of our
were.
debt paid off and being
Yeah.
able to have freedom to do what
I
we
never
want.
thought that existed though, Tammy. Like before where I'm at today, I we thought that was the norm though is to have a car payment, have a mortgage, have credit card debt, have to wait till the first to go to the grocery store. That was normal and we thought that we were okay because we weren't digging out of a garbage can. But the
Right.
truth of the matter is one bad thing happens, you're in big trouble. That's not okay.
Right. Especially if it's a medical emergency or something of that
Right.
nature. So,
What if your primary income earner gets cancer or gets sick, then what?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to just take me back for a second. I know that you talked a little bit about being with other companies before this company. I think I've heard you say that before, but thinking about it, I'm like, you look successful to everybody else, but you're really maybe successful as like 700 or 1,000. I think you might have said $1,500 was
Yeah.
like the most you
The
ever
most I ever
made.
made was like 3,000, but it took me 14 months to make over 700. So like for 14 months, one check was 700 and the rest were all under 500. But that wasn't unusual in that
Industry.
area, but now what I know today, I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, I worked so hard for so little, and I don't mind working hard, but I wanna get paid my worth, and I want it to stay. Like, that's how I feel about everything, and when I was there, it was a hamster wheel, it was up and down, starting at 0. You literally were scrounging, clawing your way to get back where you were the month before, and it was a hamster wheel, and if nobody oh my god, it was exhausting. I
So
would
I
walk
didn't
dogs
come
for a
from the
living
same
before I did that
background as
again.
you. So it's like I'm learning from you because there's so many people that are in. I mean, look, I know so
Yeah,
many people,
yeah.
and I'll ask them, like, what's your retention rate? Like, and
They
they're
don't
like, I
have
don't
one,
know.
like
Well,
20%.
I mean, they start over every month, it's constant. They're asking people to buy things that people don't need. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I have so many good friends that are in that type of business and they might make money for 1 or 2 months or maybe in the beginning, but then it's like they're not making money later on. So I just was kind of curious about that because, you think looking at them, you think, oh my gosh, they're killing it at that business.
Well, and
And then you
some may
find
be
out,
doing well, but they're exhausted. Like, even though they might be making and the amount of people making money is not a lot. So, like, there may be a couple people making a lot of money, but the majority of people aren't making money, and the ones that are making money are so exhausted because they're spinning their wheels to keep up what they've been doing, and you can't ever shut it down. You can't ever take a vacation. You can't I mean, you probably couldn't even have a child and take a maternity leave. So
nothing.
it's
Yeah.
exhausting.
And I know you've helped a lot of mamas in that space too.
It's been an absolute I'm honored to be able to do what we get to do.
Yeah.
And here I am, like, it'll be 9 years in June that I've been shopping, and I just feel like, I'm just as passionate, if not more, than I was then. People even ask me, they're like, "Are you still, like, excited?" And you could hear it in my voice. Like, I was like, "Well, yeah, I wake up excited, I go to bed thinking about their goals and their
Yeah.
dreams." And, like, there's nothing more amazing in life than to truly help other people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel like, I don't know if you feel this way too, but I feel like God has blessed me in this space because this is basically, it's not about me. It's about kingdom purpose and it's more of a ministry for me than anything else. So I feel like just a little bit we've talked, I feel like it's the same for you and that's why you've been so blessed because you're ready, right? For that.
Feel like and I remember when I wrote my book back in 2020, and that was my first most successful year that I had ever had was during COVID, and I was on the treadmill and I was cranky and I was like, "Why am I not s full with joy and excitement?" I was listening to Craig Groeschel's podcast, and literally that moment, I even wrote about it in my book. That moment, he said, "True success and happiness comes from helping more of God's children. You will
Oh,
never
that's so
feel
good.
fulfilled when you're only working towards your own personal success." And I
Yeah.
was like, I literally stopped my mind right where it was. And I was like, "Sadie, go help impact one life a day. Like, go do what you're good at. You're good at helping and inspiring other people. Like, go help more of God's children. And at any time you get in a bad head funk or head space, change what you're thinking and put your goal on impacting another person's life, not your own. Because if you're only selfishly thinking about yourself, you're not going to have fulfillment. It's rewarding and fulfilling helping others.
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely. And
changed my life.
serving. And
Mhm.
serving. Yeah,
I have to
absolutely.
retell myself. Don't get me wrong. There's moments where we're pushing real hard for something, or you're real close and you're self-absorbed, and you're like, "Well, wait a minute. I'm getting crabby. Why am I getting crabby? Because I'm not thinking about others and I'm thinking about myself." Like, let's realign and let's go put our focus where it needs to be, and then you're going to be in a way better headspace. If the thoughts that are coming into your head aren't serving you or helping you, get rid of them.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So I want to kind of wrap up our time together. I think that there's so many good points, and I really do appreciate everything you shared today. And hopefully there's somebody out there that that this can impact, because I know both of us, like, that's why you're so inspiring to me is, I didn't come from the perfect background either. And I've made a lot of choices in the past that I'm not happy about, but we can change that and we can move forward. And no matter what we've done in the past, we can have a great life. One thing that I want to do is I want to kind of leave our audience with some action
Yeah.
plans. Here's the thing, they can be inspired, they can hear this, our audience can hear this, but if they don't go and take action and just make some small changes, then nothing ever changes, right? So, is there one belief that you had to unlearn?
I would say the one belief that I had to unlearn was that I'm good enough and worthy with just who I am, because I always thought I wasn't good enough and I was always constantly trying to prove myself. And once I realized that I'm literally perfect with the person that I am today, you literally can do anything that you put your mind to.
That's
Your
good.
circumstance, your childhood, your teenage years, what your parents freaking told you, it does not make you who you are. You make you who you are, and you get to decide.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're all God's children. So, that's one thing too. So we are absolutely worthy. None of
Absolutely.
us were created imperfect. Well, we were imperfect, but we're all created perfect in his eyes. So, what about
Absolutely.
one habit that you changed in your life?
The one habit that I changed in my life would probably be making my very first habit was putting my health and wellness first. Um, and then personal development.
That's good. One thing that you would tell your younger self. You said you're 46, so you're 4
Mhm.
years younger than me. We're close.
Gen X. One thing that I would tell my younger self. Um, I would probably tell myself that it's gonna be okay. Um, and honestly, just you get to decide the life that you want. Probably because as when I was younger, I literally just thought that I was destined for mediocrity. Like I was literally gonna be that girl that was poor, that never had anything. I'd never had the nice house or the nice car. So I would tell my younger self that it's gonna be okay and that you really get to decide how you wanna live your life.
That's good. We absolutely do, because anything is possible, right?
You nailed it.
That's right.
Mm.
So, I always like to leave my audience with one suggestion that they can do today to claim it in their own life. So, I know we're talking about ones, but is there just one suggestion that they can do today to be able to claim it in their own life, claim that success that they're looking for?
That's a hard question.
I know, because you've given us so
One
many good
that's
ones.
actually really hard. So, one question, like an action that you could do today to claim your own life. And I would say, for me, like if somebody asked me, how do I run a marathon? Okay. I get asked that all the time. They said, how in the world do you run a marathon? And you want to know what I tell them? One foot in front of the other.
That's actually a good
I
suggestion.
literally, listen, this is, and maybe this will help you. Okay. So when I first started to learn to run, so I had to do a mud run. Okay. And I wasn't a runner. I couldn't even run a quarter mile without stopping. I was a smoker, by the way. So I used to smoke. I didn't even talk about that. But I ran marathons as a smoker. So true story. But I would walk a block, run a block, walk a block, run a block. And that's literally how I learned. And I've ran 2 marathons. And I started off with walking a block and jogging a block. And then a few days later, I would jog 2 blocks and walk a block, jog 2 blocks. So it's literally putting one foot in front of the other. Don't bite off a ton and think that you need to do everything all at once. It's doing one little small action to get you towards that next goal. And I know that it sounds, but it is effective. One
It
foot
is.
in front of the other. But I wanted to give you something to visualize.
No, I love it. I didn't mention this, but I actually ran a half marathon in 2008. So I
Good
was
for
I'm not
you.
a runner anymore. I don't claim to be a runner anymore, but I do have a lot of medals to prove that I was a runner.
That knee
I
pain.
just
I'm telling you. Like I'm going to Orange Theory tonight and we do a lot of like all outs and my knees like my knees are hurting. So
Yeah, probably the last run that I did was trying to remember, probably about 4 years ago. It was I did a Tiger 10K. in Baton Rouge. And then I did the Tiger 5K the next year. I was like, okay, well, maybe I don't do the 10K. Maybe I just do a 5K and that's going to be our limit. And that year, my back was screaming at me. And I was like, okay, I get it. Maybe I just need to walk. But still, it's okay. Like I still do little sprints every now and then, but I really do love that, Sadie, because it is so true. So many people think it's all or nothing. Like I'm all in. And, really just take the first step is what you're saying. Take that first step and then take the next step, one
You're gonna
foot
do
in
the
front of
marathon.
another.
That's how you're gonna reach your goal.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with me today. I think, like I said, you're leaving everybody with a lot of good pointers and a lot of good suggestions. Definitely let us know how can our audience follow you? I know you're on social.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Facebook. Facebook's where I'm most active. It's Sadie Kolves. Just search Sadie Kolves and you'll find it. On Instagram. So I am on Instagram too. And Instagram, my handle is, I don't even know my own handle. That is so funny. It's living life on my underscore terms. That's where you'll find me. And I am on TikTok under Sadie Kolves too. I don't do a lot there, and then my website is sadiekolves.com. So that's where you can find my books, my podcasts, and all the, and I blog. So you'll find all that there.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for spending time with me today on the We Are Claiming It podcast. If this episode spoke to you, be sure to share it, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us reach more women who are ready to step into their health, purpose, and financial freedom. And remember, if I can leave you with just one thing, just take that first step. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start. I'll see you next time.